All right, hello everyone. This is the product and design sync for the editor group. It's June 9th, 2021, and I'll jump right into my agenda items. So the one thing I wanted to highlight is that I'm still working on the communication plan for our upcoming features in 14.0. We've been working back and forth in an issue about tightening up the messaging in the content editor in the wiki now that that's turned on for everybody on GitLab.com. So I think that's, I created a feedback issue for it already. So we just need to link to the feedback issue in that message that we talked about putting in the content editor. And then in the feedback issue, I was going to potentially link to a video and like a direction page, which both I need to create hopefully by the end of the week. So I will today finally get around to creating an issue that has an outline of what I would want to talk about in a short video, like less than 5 minutes. And I'll ping you on that and we can make sure we cover all our bases and I'm representing it accurately. And then I'll record it probably Friday along with our kickoff video. So if that's good, then I'll do the same for navigation and settings on the top bar. And we have an issue for creating a broadcast banner on GitLab.com for the new navigation. So that will be the one I'm going to follow up today and make sure that we don't miss for shipping. I don't know how the broadcast messages work for the self-managed installs actually. Like if it needs to get done by the cutoff for the build there, then I'm not sure what engineering needs to go into creating that alert, but that'll be something for me to work on today. But yeah, I think the key thing here that I want to try is linking to the feedback issues in both cases so that we can have a single place to let everybody voice their opinions, point out bugs, or otherwise ask questions so that we can head off conversations that go off the rails on Hacker News or like, people feeling like they are surprised by changes and it weren't, something's not working to their expectation or whatever, meeting their expectations. So yeah, trying to wrap that up this week because I'll be out next week and we're shipping soon. I gave a little more thought, shifting gears to the embedding snippet stuff that we talked about last time. And I refined the issue a little bit. But I still feel pretty good about our approach right now, which is let's think about this in an ideal, mature state. And then in 14.1, I'll be coaching a product manager intern. And then in that milestone, we'll work on carving out what the actual first MVC looks like. That'll be part of his task and I'll work with him through that. So I don't think we don't need to come at this from both directions. I think let's focus on how we think embedding content, specifically snippets, but how we think that'll work. We could even assume that we've already got the block-based editing in place if you want, because I think that's pretty certain that we're going to head in that direction. And then as part of the MVC, we can say like, well, what does it look like if it's in the toolbar or something like that, right? So yeah, that would be helpful to get a little thought put into that while I'm gone, and then we could sync up maybe when I'm back at the end of towards the end of June. But if you do, I know you have a lot on your plate. If you don't have time for that, we could also potentially schedule like just a whiteboarding session, like you and me sometime when I'm back, and just kind of loosely map it out. That might be enough direction, and just carve out like 90 minutes or something like that.
All right. So when you were updating this this issue, were there questions that you have around what users want, or like the pain points that they're trying to solve? Is it just because where I'm going with this is like, yeah, it feels like the flow seems all right, and at the moment there isn't any adding a snippet, so it's like um, if we want to get some user feedback on some ideas right now, we can probably put together something maybe the week that you're back so that we can get the ball rolling, so that when you have that discussion with the intern, there's actually like a user perspective on the problem, rather than saying,
Mhm.
hey, we have snippets and we want to add them inside the wiki. We know it happens.
Mhm.
It's just really painful right now. So
Yeah, so I think the more I dug into this, the more there's two pain points. One, embedding a live, like an actual embedding of a snippet requires a script tag. So there are places where that isn't going to work. Either somebody's blocking our JavaScript, or it's not rendered. Like I don't think actually, I didn't even try it on the handbook. It should work on the handbook, but um, regardless, like there are environments where like embedding a snippet is not possible, so you would have no capability of executing the script to embed a snippet that stays up to date. So that's pain point number one, which is more of a technical problem that we need to solve in like viewing the documents and in certain environments. But there's the actual problem to solve for the use case of actually using it. I've been thinking along the lines of like a documentation site, or like our handbook, or a README file or something like that, where you're accessing code examples that you might reference in multiple places, but it's important to keep them up to date. So if you take the case of like an API documentation page or something like that, you might have snippets where in a static wiki, or like if you're just writing Markdown, you would write a code block and you would paste your code in and say, this is the script to start the server. And then later on in the document, you might say, this is like, how you update and etc. Right? So you have these code blocks all throughout your document, but then you run some changes to your API, or like you change a method name, or something like that. All those documentation code blocks are now out of date. There's plenty of other frameworks for managing like shared code, but a step in the direction of more dynamic code documentation could be, let's create a snippet that has that. It's stored in one place. Then as I update the snippet, it's updated everywhere I used it. And I can have multi-file snippets, which is nice too. And then I think the other benefit, this isn't necessarily a problem to solve a pain point right now, but the other benefit we could achieve down the road is, as we make snippets better, the functionality within the content editor and any place that uses the content editor improves as well. So for example, we start having snippets that can be, that can run, like evaluate the code itself, or you could like run a JavaScript and have basically like a little code sandbox embedded in your documentation page, or you could have a more enhanced sharing options, or just like smaller things like code themes and color themes and stuff like that. So that's kind of the motivation, and obviously all of that's validated only by anecdotal experience and our existing backlog. So we would want to certainly talk to users about it. Yeah.
cool. Thanks for that background, those examples. Yeah, so on my side with that, I didn't have time to take a look at the embedding snippet stuff. So I'll take a look at some kind of like what I did with the content toolbar. exploration. It's just kind of high level thinking around that, so that we have tangible items for you, for us to discuss this when you come back. So let's aim for that.
Mhm.
Because yeah, I think we're both kind of busy this week.
Yes, that sounds good. And then the last on my agenda, we can probably do most of this async in the issues and planning, but the plan was to move off of settings and navigation focused work and pick up some of the other categories in 14.1. There is inevitably some carryover work, like we have to remove some feature flags and do a little bit of potentially a little bit of work that didn't make it into 14.0. So we should have a discussion. I see that you linked to the Epic where we're collecting refinements to the top nav and sidebar. As I mentioned before we hit record, I'm going to have a pretty high bar for what will make the cut for 14.1 and 14.2, but there's likely some work. I think a good candidate to put in here or to schedule, I was thinking 14.2, but for us to, as the owners of snippets and the top nav, go ahead and fill out that detailed panel in the top nav for snippets to show as an example of what others could do with their categories by filling out that empty state. Yeah, I think that's an example of like the kind of work that I would prioritize. I'm still on the fence on when and if we should tackle the group sidebar refactor. So we'll talk about that in the issues. So.
All right, it sounds good. All right, so switching it over to design and research. Yeah, so first question is, now if we're shifting gears towards editor priorities, one of the things that has been in the backlog of thinking about things is the commit flow. So when you make some changes in the wiki and you submit the changes, there's a text box for commit, like a commit message. Yeah, this is also something that's also done in the static site editor. This is done in Web IDE. This is done in the single file editor. And each of these areas are slightly different. And yeah, we also can't forget the pipeline editor. And then they also have a flow that commits stuff. So we're going to, try to figure out, kind of take an audit, and then, maybe next week an activity for myself is just to dig through, see if there's any related issues on commit flow ideas. But I don't think there is much. But yeah, I think big session when you're back sounds like a good idea. So I'll aim for that time.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful to just throw out a whole bunch of ideas and get some of the engineers who may have been thinking about this before we even arrived in this category to share their thoughts. I did see in the Web IDE strategy epic something about improving the merge request process. So there might have been an epic merge request workflows. But also I found an issue in our triage. All right, so there's the related epic for the Web IDE. I don't know if it doesn't have much in it, but it's something. And then I was triaging a feature request that was, it was interesting because it was almost exactly the use case we were talking about for the static site editor. It was somebody wanted to edit the GitLab docs site and they found a small typo and they said it's too much work to clone the repo, start my local dev environment, create a, make my changes, create a merge request, and then go through that whole process. So their proposal was like just let me click a link and like bring up a text view and let me edit it and then have a streamlined merge request process. And I was like, actually, we were working on almost exactly this. It's not integrated into GitLab Docs, but like keep an eye on these categories because we're thinking about these problems. So it was a little bit of validation for that use case and that problem to solve that we've been thinking about for 18 months. But it did have me thinking like I think it got created in the wiki category with the labels. And so they were saying like, it'd be great to do this in the wiki as well. And I don't know if that was because they thought our doc site was powered by wiki or if they just thought it should be available in the wiki, but it was interesting.
So in that scenario, it was actually like long pages, so like a page with many sections. So like if you're going to edit it, the idea was like, I just want to edit this one section and then I could edit it and then submit the changes and not have to open up the whole file, find where I'm at. So I think it's a similar problem, different solution, but it is an interesting idea.
Yeah.
It's almost like taking suggested changes from the MR world, but applying it to like an editing world.
Yeah,
so you don't have you almost bypass the whole editing flow. You just say like, this is the change, and then tag whoever's necessary.
Yeah. So here's this is the issue discussed. About streamlined. So this one was the one that I saw, and actually it was Enrique that pinged me on it because he was triaging it. Actually, now that I remember, we were both doing triage at the same time. But we can look through that. I ended up closing it because it's roughly a duplicate of the work that we want to do anyway. But I included links to our strategies. And all that said, we should think about the commit flow updates when I'm back. I think that would be great work to start planning and validating. And I think there's a lot of great work to be done. So, yeah.
Okay. Yes. So this issue is different than what I was thinking, and yeah, I'll try to find mine and I'll ping it to you. But mine was about like long pages.
Cool. Yeah, I'll be interested to see that one too. And then I see that you've been busy in SciSense.
Yeah, so SciSense is kind of my new toy for this week. So thanks to the work of the engineers on our team, we finally we did a lot of work the top nav to take a look at tracking your projects, star projects, the user menu. I don't think we've gone into the detail of each individual top nav item, like for example community forum, like how many clicks on that. I don't think it goes down to that deep. I haven't checked because I'm not focused on that right now. I was more curious with the top nav with the frequency of like recently visited frequently visited links versus other links on the page, whether the search was used, how often that's used. So we don't have like, we have like a volume, we can check volumes, but yeah, probably nothing much more than that. There's not a lot of like, you can't tie sessions together, so you can't say, okay, people who looked at search also clicked on this or anything like that. So
right,
it gives us interesting signals. So one of the big ones was Fran actually closed the instrumentation ticket for the left sidebar, and then in there we talked about tracking expand, collapsed, fly out, or like the nested menu, and the events that Fran was able to capture for us, helps with answering that question, which is exciting for me. I posted my initial kind of analysis on it. It's very rough, but you can jump into it to see if there's any blind spots that I'm missing, or jumping to conclusions on certain things. Or like one thing that Jeremy brought up just recently before this call was, oh, does this data filter out bots and UI testing frameworks on our
Right.
So I'm not sure, but yeah, this is the kind of stuff that would be good to have so that we can make the data as real as possible, or like as clear as possible for us to make a decision. At the moment, I'm looking at them as relationships or like sizing. So, for example, if start project has like 5 times as more clicks as or your project has about 5 times as more as like start projects, you're like, huh, that's interesting. So is that
Yeah,
because
these
it's a
are
testing thing
great.
or not? Yeah.
These are already great data to see. I'm really surprised, but also not surprised about how low the mobile events are, like how infrequently some of this nav is used on mobile, but that makes sense given the complexity and how low our mobile usage is in general. Yeah, I'm going to dig into these dashboards and I'll leave some feedback on the issue as well. This is great.
Yeah, would appreciate that. Yeah.
It's just I mean, already like some great insights into where the most frequent clicks are, and yeah, awesome. This is really helpful. Thank you for putting this together.
No problem. Yeah, it just please leave feedback on the issue because there's probably something totally overlooked, or if something doesn't make sense, because like the naming convention is very from my head out, so it's just
yeah, I will. I'll take a look at those. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. I have to jump for an interview in 3 minutes. So anything else before I do that?
Nope. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this sync section. So all good.
Cool. Well, I will probably be pinging you a whole bunch over your night and into tomorrow. So I expect a lot of to-dos, but they're mostly going to be FYIs or for feedback on like our the outlines for our communication strategy and stuff. So hopefully not too overwhelming. But have a good night and talk to you soon.
All right. See you. Bye.
Bye.